seen.
But the fans decide whether you're a face or a heel. Yeah, you can write whatever you want, but in the end, the fans decide whether you're a heel or you're a face.
Speaking of fans...
Because Boba Fett's a heel, right?
Well, Boba Fett's the most overrated character in Star Wars.
All right, well, but Boba Fett's a heel in the movie, in the storyline,
but he's cool.
Right? But he's a face when it comes to the Star Wars universe, the fans go.
Because he's cool looking.
So he's really, truly, he's a face.
Yeah, but...
Today's conversation will be about KayFabe.
KayFabe, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what is KayFabe? Can you explain this to me?
Well, KayFabe is a term in wrestling, but I guess it's the keeping of an illusion of something that's made to look authentic.
Okay.
You know, a played out scenario that's made to look unscripted or authentic. That's what KayFabe is. And there's so many different little terms that go along with it. You know, in the world of wrestling, they have a lot of terms for different aspects of the story of professional wrestling.
Okay. KayFabe, let's look up the KayFabe, the definition of KayFabe.
Oh, I could read it to you exactly what the definition
go ahead. What's the definition of KayFabe?
The definition of KayFabe is keeping up the illusion that professional wrestling is not scripted. This is a complicated concept because the basis of KayFabe is wrestlers making sure that the fans believe that what they are being presented is 100% real and not scripted in any fashion.
So, does KayFabe only have to do with professional wrestling?
I don't think it does. I mean, I think you can KayFabe in other aspects of life or entertainment. You know, well, movies are KayFabe, right? I mean, we're watching these actors portray something that is real. You know, we're taking it as real, but really, it's an actor portraying it. You know?
Yeah.
So that could be some type of form of KayFabe, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. And KayFabe is important, especially in professional wrestling, because, I mean, look, one of the things that people always used to do when I was growing up watching wrestling, anytime I told people that I liked pro wrestling or I was a fan of wrestling, the one thing I would always get would be like, well, don't you know it's fake? Like, I didn't know it wasn't scripted. And if I did know it wasn't real, why am I watching it? Well, for the same reason, then you watch General Hospital or you watch, a movie. It's an escape from reality, and the whole country knew it was fake. When did the United States and Canada, these two countries specifically, they realized that professional wrestling wasn't wasn't legit back in that, I think it was 1938, because that's when the sports newspapers quit reporting professional wrestling outcomes on the newspaper, just like they would report basketball, football, or boxing. How they do now. They report the results, right? Because those are legitimate sports. How come when you open the sports section, you don't see the results for Monday Night Raw?
No. Yeah.
Right? You don't see that because professional wrestling is not legitimate, right? So the country realized that back in 1938. That's when the country, stopped, the media at least, stopped here in the United States and in Canada reporting on professional wrestling. And then after that, you would think people would just stop watching it, right? Because they pretty much outed the fact that, hey, wrestling's not on the up and up, wrestling's not legit. Why do people still spend their money and pay for a ticket to go watch something that isn't real? And the reason for it is the same thing as if it was a movie or TV or when you go watch a magician. I mean, everyone knows magic isn't real, right? But it's presented in a way to where sometimes you forget you're watching. It's like, wow, this is amazing. This is what's going on. They try to blur the lines between what is real and what isn't real in pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's for the entertainment value of it. I mean, people used to go nuts, for guys like Gorgeous George and all. So that I mean, people would flock Madison Square Gardens and all these different places just to see these matches. And yeah, it wasn't a competitive sport anymore. It was entertainment. They were there to be entertained.
And I think kayfabe was invented pretty much it's almost like, I've heard Al Snow say this before, but almost out of respect for the fans. That's why we have kayfabe. So, because if you're paying your hard-earned dollar to watch Hulk Hogan take on the Iron Sheik in the main event of a wrestling match, and you paid money to see that, you need kayfabe because you don't want Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik showing up in the same car riding together and they're going to have a match. They're supposed to hate each other. So they're kayfabing that part of it, right? The kayfabe is when they're showing up in different vehicles. And it's kind of like, kayfabe is kind of like the line or the curtain that you keep, right? So you don't see what's behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's like when they have like the locker room for the baby faces and the locker room for the heels.
Heels, yeah.
The heels came out of one side. Back in the old days, they had like two entrances.
Yeah.
The heels came out of one side of the arena, and the baby faces came out on the other side of the arena.
And that's a form of practicing kayfabe, right? Just like knowing that something's a work, which means in professional wrestling terms, a work is something that's been planned, right? Yeah. And in a shoot is something that's real, that was not planned. Like for instance, that horrible day Owen Hart passed away. As you can hear the ambulances in the background. We're near a busy street, but when Owen Hart fell from the rafters in the Kemper Arena, that was a shoot. Obviously, that was.
Can you believe that's been over 20 years?
I can't. 20 years?
Over 20 years ago now. That's crazy. Yeah, it feels like only yesterday.
Everyone who's watching this, if you watch pro wrestling, you know about Owen Hart. But if you've never heard about Owen Hart, you can look him up. You can Google him. He is a professional wrestler who was playing a role as the Blue Blazer. His name is Owen Hart, and he's playing a role as a Blue Blazer. And in the Blue Blazer, his entrance required that he came from the rafters. He would come down on a bungee, harness, be lowered down on a harness into the ring. That was the whole big entrance. And something went wrong, and the harness broke or wasn't attached properly, and he fell over, 90 feet?
About 80.
80 or 90 feet from the rafters, and landed and hit his head on the turnbuckle and pretty much died instantly. And he died in the ring there. And it was a horrible, horrible accident that happened. And that was almost over 20 years ago. But that specifically was an incident that was a shoot. And it wasn't a work. Most everything you watch on TV is pro wrestling. On the wrestling show is pretty much a work.
Yeah.
Every now and then you'll get somebody saying something personal during their promos that they wasn't written in for them. That's what you would call a shoot. Sometimes you'll take a shot at somebody by saying something that's pretty bad. And a lot of wrestlers, they're known for shooting in the ring, which is pretty much breaking away from character and saying things. And that's actually what makes it really exciting to me.
Yeah, it's more like going off script,
Yeah.
Where a shoot, it's like they say something or they do something that was not planned or agreed upon previously.
Yeah.
Sometimes like you say, they will say something or actually do something in the ring that was not planned or that's a shoot. And a work is something that when they sit down, the competitors sit down, all the participants sit down and they discuss, what's going to happen. That makes it a work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So just to give people an idea over some of the terminologies of kayfabe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are some of the ones that off the top of your head,
Well,
like that you can think of? Some of the language, it's almost like a different language. Kayfabe and pro wrestling almost has like a different language. You know, when you sometimes I use it when I'm talking. If like Richard said it a million times, if I've gotten mad at him and I'm like just going at him and
just cut a promo on people.
Yeah, I just cut a promo on him. Like he says, well, why are you cutting this big promo on me? Calm down, you know. You get that from pro wrestling because in wrestling, when sometimes guys will have to cut the big promo, you know, before their match, which pretty much means that you're yelling and they're selling it by showing that they're angry at their opponent, right, for a certain reason. Well, sometimes I get angry at Richard, he gets angry at me, and I cut a big promo on him. Now my promo's a shoot rather than a work, right? So now we're talking fake kayfabe, right? I'm cutting a promo on you, but my promo is a shoot, not a work. Because I'm really mad at you, right?
Another term is a term that they use is a spot.
Okay.
A spot is a certain part of the match where they focus on a certain maneuver or a certain incident.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. If you watching I'm going to give you some of the to me, two of the most important spots of all time. One, when Hulk Hogan body slammed Andre the Giant, you would consider that a spot, right? That moment was gigantic. It was at WrestleMania 3. If you can Google it, check it out. And another famous spot, which I'll never forget, was The Undertaker throwing Mankind off the top of the cage and going through the table. Now, that both those spots were works, right? The Mankind one sure felt like a shoot, and for many years I couldn't tell whether that was planned or unplanned. You know, I'm sure it was planned that something amazing would have happened, but maybe I'm not saying Undertaker threw him off the cage.
No, but if that wasn't planned, Mick Foley probably would have sued them.
Well, no, I'm not saying that
he had to be in on that.
No, I'm not saying he wasn't in on it. I'm just saying it wasn't part of the match. That maybe while they were on top of the cage, Mick Foley said, "Just throw me off, right? We're in the moment. Throw me off, right?" And it wasn't something that was planned, and then they just decided last minute to do it. It's still a work, but kind of a shoot, right? I mean, not really a shoot, not in the definition we're talking about, but it was like it would be like a last minute script change, right? That's what I'm talking about.
You mean maybe like a called spot?
A called spot, perfect.
Like it was called.
Yeah, that Mick Foley called it. But because I think to a lot of the boys in the back and to the production crew, that may have felt like a shoot because they probably weren't expecting that. The reaction that Jim Ross gave and stuff sounded sincere. It sounded like, oh my God, what? Maybe it was the shocking, visuals of a 280-pound man flying about 25 feet off a cage through a table with less than a foot between him and the audience. That was probably a very shocking visual for Jim Ross and some of the other announcers.
Oh yeah, for sure. You want to know one of my favorite terms?
What?
The turn.
The turn. Yes.
The turn. To me, that's my favorite one because it can be a hero or a baby face.
Yeah.
All of a sudden turns into the villain. Becomes the villain. And also it could be the villain or the most hated guy.
Okay.
Does something heroic or...
Sure.
And becomes the next big thing.
Give me an example of a turn.
Of a turn?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the way Andre turned on Hogan, or a lot of guys actually turned on Hogan. Or, Austin and Brett, to me, that was the first double turn.
That was a double turn
I've ever seen.
Yep, because Austin turned face.
In the beginning of that match, you had Brett as the hero.
Mm-hmm.
Austin played the villain, but during the course of the match, they switched sides.
And if I'm going to use pro wrestling terms, I'm going to say Austin was the heel and Brett was the face or baby face, right? And at the end of that match,
they reversed it.
Brett was the heel
and Austin
ended up being the baby face.
And I had never seen that happen, A, during a match,
yeah,
and B, with two characters flipping sides. I've always seen it before that time as one guy betrays the other, or one guy befriends the other, or whatever, and that's how that happens.
And if you really want to get technical, Austin wasn't even a heel. And to me, he was more of a tweener, because he was an in-betweener, in between being a heel and being a face. Even though he was a heel, he was really, over. That's another term when somebody is,
He's gaining popularity,
right? Then they're really over with the crowd, right? So Austin was really over, even though he was a heel. He played the role of a villain. So to me, he was a tweener, And then at that moment, he really he went from a tweener and just a full-on face at that point, And Brett definitely went from being a face to being a complete heel, and maybe a tweener. Or no, a complete face in Canada, because in Canada it was very well liked.
That was the first time I ever saw that too.
Yeah.
One guy get booed all over the United States and cheered all over the rest of the world.
Yeah.
That was kind of weird.
Right? Yeah, Brett pretty much was pretty popular everywhere but the United States, especially in Canada. Austin had so much popularity. It's just crazy to think about that time. But I'm going to give you another example of a turn, right? And this has nothing to do with wrestling. In movies, we've seen it. In Star Wars, Darth Vader turned. That was his final act, pretty much. He turned on the Emperor, and he went from being a heel to being a face.
The hero,
right? And then also, currently, Kylo Ren kind of had a turn. He turned, and then not really fully, but he did have a turn because he
I don't know. I think he is fully. I mean, he killed his father. I mean, that fully is a turn to me.
No, I'm not even talking about turning heel. He was already heel at that point. I'm talking about when he turned face, when he killed Snoke. That was a bit of a turn. I mean, the fans started cheering for him. So he turned for a little bit, and him and Ray started fighting the bad guys.
But I think he turned for greed, though.
It doesn't matter what he turned for. The point is he turned. So for a short period of time, while we're watching that on the big screen, he was the hero. He's being cheered. He's being, right? I mean, you're feeling that he's like, okay, for a short period of time.
We saw two different movies.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
So when Kylo Ren kills Snoke.
He kills Snoke because, okay, you got to remember the whole Sith, well, they're not Sith, but the whole thing is, Palpatine wanted Vader dead, Vader wanted Palpatine dead. They want each other dead because they want the absolute power.
Sure.
Kylo kills Snoke. He's not a good guy. He kills Snoke because he's the guy in charge.
But as far as the fans go, he's a good guy at that point because they're cheering for him.
The story, though.
But you got to remember that when you're over, and Kylo Ren went over.
Cheered Darth Vader.
But Kylo went over on that spot.
No, I
he
know,
went over.
But what I'm saying in the story, he's still. Now he's the ultimate evil because he's
But didn't he go back to back? Did he try to kill Rey after that? No, he defended her. He backed into her and started fighting the other.
Because he wanted her to join him. See,
I understand, but
Vader wanted Luke to join him, and Vader wanted the Emperor dead. The Emperor wanted Luke to join him and wanted Vader dead. I got as far as the storyline goes, but you have to still consider that a form of a turn. But I just think that's just the way the fans look at it. People just cheer it because it was a cool visual.
Yeah, but
it was a cool scene.
But the fans decide whether you're a face or a heel. Yeah, you can write whatever you want, but in the end, the fans decide whether you're a heel or you're a face.
Speaking of fans...
Because Boba Fett's a heel, right?
Well, Boba Fett's the most overrated character in Star Wars.
All right, well, but Boba Fett's a heel in the movie, in the storyline,
but he's cool.
Right? But he's a face when it comes to the Star Wars universe, the fans go.
Because he's cool looking.
So he's really, truly, he's a face.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that in the story, though, Kylo killed Snoke, not because he's good, or he's a good guy again. It's because he wanted the ultimate power. He wanted the ultimate position.
And I understand that, but as far as the fans go, he kind of falls into that kind of a turn. So anyway,
I got a term that you are gonna like.
Okay, what is it?
It's one that one of your favorite wrestlers is very familiar with.
Okay.
The squash.
Yeah, Ultimate Warrior and
Ultimate
Goldberg.
Warrior and Goldberg. They were very good. They're so
Explain the squash match.
squash is a type of match that is short,
Those are
where
the
one
best.
wrestler beats another wrestler very easily, and
Yeah.
one wrestler looks very dominant towards the opponent.
Yeah.
You know, and Goldberg and Ultimate Warrior were very dominant against their opponents.
Those were the best. Some of those were the best. I mean, look, I love 5-star matches. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that the Warrior and Goldberg are my favorite wrestlers because they were the most technical wrestlers. I mean, I love watching technical wrestlers. I love AJ Styles. I love Kenny Omega. These guys can go. Ricky Steamboat, Ric Flair,
Randy Savage, all those guys.
all these guys are great in-ring performers. But the Warrior and Goldberg, they were extremely entertaining to me. They were my favorite wrestlers of all time. Special Ultimate Warrior. He's number one in my book because he was just everything about him. His intensity. He was so colorful. He was just a crazy man as he ran to the ring and shook the ropes. He just felt like he was a superhero, right? And he was his squash matches or his matches were exciting because they were over before they begun. And it's a good thing because he couldn't really wrestle. Although he did put in some good performances when he had to. Him and Hogan were good. Him and Savage was great. Him and Rude, right?
Yeah. No.
So he did have some good ones. But for overall, that's what I want. I want to see the Warrior in a 2, 3, 4 minute match. And I'm happy.
I used to like it when he would like come down like on Superstars or something. He'd come down running around the ring. He'd get in the ring, bounce back and forth from the ring, clothesline his opponent, pick him up, drop him, splash him. He's done.
Yep.
That was like so cool to see that.
He squashed Andre. He squashed Honky Tonk Man. He squashed a bunch of guys. You know, all these no-name jobbers he squashed. There's another kayfabe term, jobber.
Yeah.
And a jobber is someone who
Takes the loss.
Who does the job, and the job is putting over the superstar who they're trying to build up, the talent they're trying to build up for you to pay to watch pay-per-view. So you throw the jobber in there, he makes the talent look really good by selling or overselling some of the moves. So let's say the Ultimate Warrior goes and clotheslines me, and I'm just going to barely fall over. No, I'm going to go falling over and hold my chest like he just took my head off. That means I'm selling the move. I'm making him look like Superman. You know, if I say, "Hey Richard, we're going to get in a fight and I'm going to push you or you're going to push me," right? Now, if I want to make you look like you have unbelievable power, when you push me, I'm going to go flying about 10 feet,
maybe
a couple rolls, and have a face looking at you like I've never felt that power in my life, like you're from Krypton, right? Yeah. That means I just sold it. That means I'm putting you over. That means you look like $1 million, right?
Or also you sell the injury. Like let's say you throw me down and you stomp on my knee, or you stomp on my leg, or whatever, and then it's hard for me to get up, and then I'll like limp away, you know, or I'll be holding my knee, or, you know, I emphasize what you did. Yeah, you know,
that's a whole key right there. Emphasize the move. Emphasize the actual wrestler that's doing the move on you, making them look as good as possible. Another way to make someone look superhuman is and this is what the actual talent can do, is no sell. You know, when the opponent clotheslines the Ultimate Warrior and the Warrior just doesn't fall or doesn't even move, instead looks down at his chest like there was a fly on it, and then looks back at his opponent and clotheslines him halfway through the moon, that right there makes him look like $1 million. That's the no sell from the Ultimate Warrior, and then the oversell from the jobber. That's what made the Ultimate Warrior exciting. And as a kid, when I was watching it, I didn't know it was fake. I mean, I didn't know it was real. I thought it was real, right? I thought the Ultimate Warrior was
like a superhero,
pretty much just like a superhero. I mean, you know, I'd paint my face and get all excited to go see him in the match, and you know, and that's what made him exciting. That's why I have his toys and collectible stuff, because I still remember those childhood memories. You gotta love those, right? So, what else do we got? I'll edit this part out.
We also have another term for the reactions that wrestlers get. They call it pop.
Oh God, yeah, I love that.
Kind of like, you pop the crowd. It's such a loud reaction that you hear the pop, the proverbial pop.
That's some of my favorite things, and one of my favorite things in wrestling. When somebody's music hits and the crowd just goes,
Just jump up. They just
ape
go through the
shit.
roof.
I mean, they go through the roof. And some wrestlers, they get a huge pop. Ultimate Warrior got a huge pop when he ran out against the Honky Tonk Man in that Intercontinental Championship match where he squashed him in literally, less than a minute.
Do you think a pop can not just be only a reaction that somebody gets, but also an ovation?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's more to me a reaction, like right when their music hits, or when they do a spot, or when they get a pinfall, right? Or when they say something, you get a huge any type of reaction,
or even when they make a long-awaited return.
Yeah, that's some of the best pops are from the return, And just to go complete kayfabe on somebody, or not kayfabe, sorry, more like wrestling terminology, because there's a difference. The wrestling terminology would be that this guy here got a huge pop because he's really over. And why is he over is because they put him in with the right jobbers who sell and make him look like $1 million.
And that leads to his push.
That leads to his push. Perfect intro. And what's a push?
A push is something when a wrestler starts getting elevated in the card and starts moving up the card, so to speak, and a lot of the emphasis of the storylines. Oh, there's another one that get pushed into them and could possibly lead to a championship of some sort or a bigger storyline.
Yeah. So give me some notable pushes.
Notable
pushes.
Who's got Stone Cold Steve Austin's had a notable push.
Huge push. Who got the biggest push ever, in your opinion?
Oh, definitely, my opinion, Warrior.
He
beat the most popular unbeatable guy at the time that he was most popular and unbeatable.
WrestleMania 6, the Ultimate Challenge.
And for the biggest title in the game, not just in the company, but in the game.
And first time that anybody held both titles in the Continental Championship.
I mean, I think I have not seen...
He beat Hulkamania in its prime.
Exactly.
How big of a bigger push should that be? Hogan got a pretty big push when he beat Andre, but that just led to even a bigger push when Ultimate Warrior beats Hogan, because Hogan beats Andre. So Hogan beats Andre, Warrior beats Hogan, huge push, right? Another huge push, Goldberg got a huge push. He went 190-0, right? Or 174-0. Right, and then he beats Hogan for the championship. Becomes the first undefeated world champion
again
in pro wrestling
double
history.
Champion right there.
Another double champion. Yeah, Austin with a huge push. He pretty much made his own way, but they pushed him pretty hard after he started gaining popularity.
Another person who had a big push, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, Brock Lesnar.
He was just unstoppable.
Huge push. Getting to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania is a giant push.
No, but even
on The Undertaker?
Even before, when he first came in, he was just a tank. He went through everybody. And then when he finally got through The Rock, became champion.
Yeah, went through The Rock, and then I think his biggest moment when he beat The Undertaker.
Right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, huge push. So, what else? Is there any other terminology? We started talking about kayfabe, but let's say kayfabe and wrestling terminology are two kind of different things, right? But
I think the last one we could touch base on is a term used as program.
Okay.
And I'm not talking about a television show. I'm talking about a program is when it's a group of series of matches that two competitors have with each other. It could be a rivalry, or it could be a story, or thing of that nature. Someone say like let's say you and I were both wrestlers. I'll be like, you know what? Maybe it's time you and I have a program together.
Sure.
Meaning we're going to have a series of matches or a rivalry.
What's a notable program that you can think of?
There's so many. I mean,
how about
the Austin and The Rock had a great program.
Yeah, series of matches. Brett and Sean
had a great program. Hogan and Savage had a great program. I mean,
Which we haven't even talked about Brett and Sean. We haven't even talked about
yeah.
probably the most famous shoot of all time. Or is it a work? Nobody really knows.
I think
but
those guys worked themselves into a shoot. Yeah, you know. I mean,
those guys worked themselves into a shoot. The Montreal screw job. Google that if you haven't seen it. Of course, you probably have.
Yeah.
That was. You want to explain that? I won't need to.
Well,
pretty much what happened.
Basically,
Brett didn't want to do the job. He didn't want to lay down.
Yeah, well, let's not just go there yet. First, what happened was that a match was abruptly stopped. That's what it was. You know, the match was planned out ahead of time, but the owner of the company abruptly stopped it.
Yeah,
you know?
It was supposed to be. It was supposed to be Brett and Sean having a double disqualification.
Yeah,
right?
but see, the thing that led up to that was that, you know, I'm a big believer, and I'm a big Bret Hart fan, but I don't agree with him. I'm a big believer that if you're gonna leave the company, or if you're gonna leave the business, or if you're gonna, you know, you got to do the right thing and put over the person that's coming in after you. You know. And I don't think Brett didn't want to do that because he felt it was a personal issue for him when it should have just been a business decision, you know. And it just turned into a bad thing. And I think everybody feels bad about it now. But I think Vince was only doing what was right for his company, you know. And Brett not liking Sean, you know, everybody that did it, everybody who ever left in some way, shape, or form always did the job for the other person on their way out, and Brett didn't want to do that. But again, why did Brett? Where did these things come in that the wrestlers have their own creative control? How did that happen?
I don't know, but some do.
Yeah, I know, but how does that happen? It's either you do what we ask you to tell you, or you don't work here. I mean, it's someone's company. It's not their company.
Yeah.
You know, and he should have done the right thing. He didn't do it, so they ended up doing it for him, you know, and it just became a big mess.
So you blame Brett for this?
No, I don't blame him. I just think, well, why didn't he just want to do that? I mean, you know, someone did it for him. Ric Flair did it for him, right?
Yeah.
Ric Flair was going back to WCW. He was the champion. He was going to decided to go back to WCW.
Yeah.
Vince probably said, hey, okay, you're going back to WCW. Good luck to you. But you know what? You're going to wrestle Brett and drop him the belt.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Hogan did it too.
Yeah.
You know, Hogan was going to leave wrestling. He dropped the belt to Yokozuna. I mean, it was done before, and it didn't disgrace that wrestler. So why? I mean, I just think it was a personal thing.
Probably.
He just didn't want to do it, you know, and you know, unfortunately, they had to do what they had to do. And I don't. But see, I always thought this was kind of weird that Vince was so paranoid of Brett showing up with Bischoff with the Eagle belt.
Yeah.
But yet 6-7 years earlier, he had Bobby with the big gold.
The big gold.
You know, talking about the real world's champion. You know, I mean,
well, that's probably why Vince knew that that's possible.
But
you know?
I'm just thinking,
he didn't want that to happen.
I'm just thinking that's silly. You know, you were able to do it to somebody 6 years prior.
Well, that's Vince McMahon for you. I mean, Vince doesn't want that done to him, obviously.
No, I know, but I'm just thinking. Well, you know, you were okay with someone doing it to the other company. You know,
of course. He doesn't want that.
But I really don't think Brett would have done something like that.
Probably not. I think
Brett cared too much for Vince or for the company as a whole. Brett didn't want to leave.
No, I don't think he did either.
The Franchise 80s podcast now has merchandise. We have t-shirts, hats, backpacks, pins, stickers, and all sorts of great stuff. Just please check out www.franchiseauctions.com to purchase some of these great items and show your support for the Franchise 80s podcast. Thank you.
I like how you have the mic.
What's that now?
I like how you have the mic. The way you have it is pretty cool.
All right, well, I mean, it's your setup, so.
Seriously. Sometimes you come across as a kind of an asshole.
Don't say that. While you're recording?
No. No.
So,
All right. Okay. What?
well, don't say that while you're recording.
Mr. Louis?
All right.
So, what's the topic?
You don't
today,
think you
sir?
come off like an asshole sometimes?
No, I'm a really nice guy.
You should be on the Snicker commercials.
Mr. Red?
Here, Richard, eat a Snickers. You know yourself.
Well, yeah, what? You